Who is the man who calls himself Barack Hussein Obama? Although his political career has been built on the life narrative of two autobiographies he supposedly wrote himself. These autobiographies are in fact partially works of fiction, full of omissions and diversions seemingly intended to conceal Obama's past. And beyond the books, those who have tried to carefully research Barack Obama's past have run into a chain of outright roadblocks. This pattern of concealment, diversions, and omissions has led some people to say that he's the most secretive presidential candidate ever. So let's start with what seem to be the most fundamental questions. What is his name, and where was he born? The answer? It depends on who you ask. Obama claims that he was born in Hawaii, but his grandmother and some siblings say he was born in Kenya, the land of his father. In an attempt to prove he was born in Hawaii, one of his official websites posted a birth certificate, which turned out to be a crude fake. We don't even have any baby pictures to show where he might have been born. In fact, it's not until his elementary school in Indonesia was searched that we found any real proof of anything on paper. And it turns out that his real name was Barry Soetoro. In fact, there has been so much concern over where Barack Obama was born that at least 4 lawsuits have been filed to try to get to the bottom of the matter, and Barack Obama has not helped by producing any valid birth certificate. By the way, according to the United States Constitution, one has to be a natural-born citizen of the United States in order to actually become president. When Barack Obama became a lawyer in the United States, he actually concealed his previously used identities that we've referred to earlier. To our knowledge, why he did this has never been satisfactorily explained. You may have noticed from the documents we showed you earlier that Barack Obama was raised in the religion of Islam. In other words, he was a Muslim. Perhaps because of this, Obama has gone to great lengths to portray the American side of his family, in other words, his mother and his grandparents on his mother's side, as religiously very normal. The truth, however, is quite different. Obama's grandparents appear to have traveled halfway across the country in order to attend a very unusual church. This church was nicknamed the Little Red Church by the neighboring churches because of this particular church's support for Red Communist China at a time of high tensions in the Cold War. This church does not appear to make mention of Jesus anywhere, and they take pride in not having what they call Christian bias. But stranger even than that, this church has listed itself in the Witches of the World directory under a listing of covens. If you don't know what a coven is, look it up. There, they proudly proclaim that their congregation is full of Wiccan and pagan families. Barack Obama's mother may have actually brought him back to this congregation from Hawaii. Unbelievably, Barack Obama claims on his own website that he has never been a Muslim, while almost everybody outside the United States seems to know that Barack Obama is a Muslim still. And Barack Obama's own elementary school teacher tells us that Barack Obama took Mengaji classes. Mengaji classes are for only the most devout Muslim students. In these classes, children are required to recite the Quran from cover to cover in the original Arabic language with a perfect accent, hardly a task to be taken on by the casual Muslim.
You are absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith, and you're absolutely right that
We heard before that Barack Obama covered up his previous identities on his attorney's application to the state of Illinois. But what else didn't Barack Obama tell us? Well, for starters, his entry into the prestigious position of Harvard Law Review was promoted and funded by a man named Khalid Al Mansour. This is according to the testimony of renowned attorney Percy Sutton. But who is Khalid Al Mansour? He's an Islamic supremacist and employee of one of the world's richest men, Prince Al Walid. Mansour used to be called Donald Warden when he helped out the Black Panthers. In fact, his office in the Bay Area was right next door to the Black Panthers office. The Black Panthers were a violent black nationalist group active in the late 60s and early 70s, and the Black Panthers have been reformed in order to support Barack Obama's campaign. Barack Obama was a member of an American Socialist Party called the New Party. Upon this discovery, Barack Obama went through what is now the usual series of tactics to try to deny and then to try to distance himself from the facts as they were discovered. As each of the denials and diversions was met with incontrovertible evidence, Barack Obama finally attempted to claim that the new party was not, after all, socialist. But of course, it is. Barack Obama's father is from the Luo tribe of Kenya, and he has a cousin there, unknown to most Americans, called Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga once attempted a Soviet-backed coup in Kenya to try to overthrow a U.S.-friendly Kenyan government. In 2006 and 2007, Barack Obama returned to Kenya to help his cousin Odinga become elected as the new president of Kenya. He did this as a U.S. Senator under the guise of a taxpayer-funded fact-finding trip. Barack Obama did not advertise this fact to the American people, nor did he advertise the fact that his cousin Odinga was trying to take over Kenya for Islam. His cousin Odinga had signed an agreement with Islamic factions in Kenya to get their support for the election. He promised them essentially that he would Islamify Kenya, to impose Sharia law, to suppress Christianity, and to make Kenya into a terrorist safe haven. That's right, to make Kenya into a terrorist safe haven. Fortunately, Obama's cousin lost the election, but the results were still disastrous because violence had been planned even before the election for an Islamic overthrow of the U.S.-friendly government. Exactly the extent of Barack Obama's involvement we have yet to find out, but we do know that he was intimately involved in planning Odinga's campaign.
This is what's been unleashed in Kenya. Ethnic warfare at its most basic and most brutal.
In the town of Kisumu, people are desperate to get out by whatever means they can.
One politician became popular with Kenya's poor by pledging to distribute the country's wealth more evenly.
We know that Barack Obama was calling his cousin up to 2 times a day at the height of his own campaign, and was frequently exchanging emails with Odinga from his Senate office, giving him advice on how to win. Almost 1,000 people died as a result of election violence, and 50 people were burned inside of a Christian church by Muslim followers of Odinga, while they were trying to seek refuge from the violence. I wish I could show you something here about Barack Obama's college records, but I can't because they've all been deliberately blocked by him, including all papers that he's written or hasn't written. We simply don't know because we can't have access. Barack Obama admits that his grandparents appointed a man named Frank as one of his mentors. This Frank, we have discovered beyond any doubt, is Frank Marshall Davis. Frank Marshall Davis was known to the FBI as a Soviet agent operating within the United States. Much of what Frank Marshall Davis wrote under a pseudonym we can't show you here because it's basically pornographic. However, a number of the themes touched upon in Frank Marshall Davis's literature are in fact reflected in Barack Obama's own speeches and writing. You probably already know about the infamous Reverend Wright, who is anti-American and who married Obama. At first, Obama said he could never deny his pastor. Then he tried to distance himself from his pastor. Then he left his pastor's church. Enough said. Barack Obama has many close relationships with terrorists, anti-Americans, Islamic supremacists. They all seem to like Barack Obama. Not the least famous of these is Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dohrn. Barack Obama's career was in fact launched at the home of Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dohrn, former Weather Underground members who tried to overthrow the United States by force and violence. But it also turns out that Bill Ayers probably helped Barack Obama write his 2 autobiographies. Many people know that Barack Obama's entry into the world of politics officially was as a community organizer. But what is a community organizer? Community organizing is actually a technique of developing radical leftists developed by a man named Alinsky. Alinsky himself, a former Russian police officer who moved to Chicago and worked with gang leaders to develop techniques for overthrowing current governments and replacing them with radical leftist governments by using weaknesses he found in the democratic system. In this role, he was basically following in the footsteps of his mentor, Frank Marshall Davis, as it was stated even by the Communist Party USA chairman. In fact, Frank Marshall Davis had attempted something very similar while he was being watched by agents of the FBI. I wish I could tell you about all the other concealments, deceptions, and diversions that have been used by Barack Obama. You'll have to do your own research on the internet. Many of the American media outlets have decided that the man should be president, regardless of any facts that may actually be uncovered about him. Government background checks are not required for any presidential candidate, so this time, saving